Cherished viewers and those who may be listening to our podcast series, welcome to the Perisous Horizon chat room. Your host, distinguished Toastmaster Patricia Jifa-Mensah-Lakai, noted in her book entitled Fearless, Fabulous and Flamboyant, The Importance of Recognizing and Celebrating Our Different Milestones Attained in Our Quest to Realize Our Dreams in Life. The journey into becoming the best version of yourself comes with struggles, challenges, and sometimes the feeling of giving up is so strong. Perisous Horizon is here to encourage and support you to never give up. You have it in you to do exceedingly, abundantly, and above all you could ever dream of or imagine. Stay connected right here. Let's listen to the experiences of others, learn lessons from them, be inspired to do more, and together, let's keep scaling higher heights.
Hello, good evening, cherished viewers. If you have joined us tonight, welcome to the Perisous Horizon chat room series. As always, I am your host, Patricia Jifa-Mensah-Lakai, and I am here. Okay, we have a bit of feedback. Today, I'm excited because we have in the studio Rhonda Bowen, who is joining us all the way from Germany. And it has been an exciting journey having Rhonda here to be with us to share a little bit about herself. Now, I'm not going to make myself the focus for tonight. So I am going to welcome Rhonda L Bowen into the studio, and she is going to tell us a little bit more about herself. Good evening, Rhonda.
Thank you so much for having me, Patricia. It's great to be here. I'm really pleased to be able to share with all of you this evening. As you can see, probably at the bottom of your screen, you can see that my job is I'm a communication guide. Well, what does that really mean? A communication guide is somebody who sort of takes you by the hand and goes with you on journeys where you're not really sure how you want to express yourself and get your message across. And I work especially with people which I call B.E.S.T professionals. Not only that they're wonderful people, but they come from the industries and fields that are considered for business, engineering, science, and technology. I've had my own business now for 32 years here in Germany. I'm originally from the US, but have been here since 1983. And have had the opportunity to travel and work with people from more than 70 countries around the world. And it's been an absolutely wonderful way to spend my life to help other people and to make sure that they have better interactions with the people that they need to work with as well.
Wonderful. Now, what I wanted to ask you, Rhoda, is I know a lot of people that look up to Americans in the sense that they look at America as the land where you go and make all your dreams happen. So what actually got you leaving America and going into Germany and being there for all these years?
Many people ask that question, and the fact that I'm a woman, the question that usually comes directly after that was, what was his name? Meaning they think I did that because I had met some wonderful German man. I've met lots of wonderful German men in the meantime, but I first came to Germany when I was 17 years old, and I was an exchange student in high school. And I spent a summer here in Germany with a family that didn't speak very much English at all. And my German was very poor when I came, but very quickly I had to learn to either speak German or forget everything because there was no other way for me to communicate. And so I fell in love with Germany and I fell in love with the language. And after that, I went back, finished high school in the US, then started university. And as is typical in America for people who study languages, I spent the third year of my studies in Vienna, Austria, and then did an internship in Munich, in Germany. So I had opportunities to meet and work together with many, many wonderful people here. And a couple of years later, when I went to graduate school at Penn State, they asked me to come back to Germany and run a program for younger students. And that was the end of 1983. That program ran for 1 year. And after that, I decided I didn't want to go back. And I've been here ever since.
Wow. That is lovely. And the next question that I want to find out, what was a major cultural shock for you when you settled in Germany? What was the major cultural shock?
Yeah. The
Apart
major
from a love for the language.
Well, yes, obviously, but I mean, the biggest shock I think was not so much the first time. I came to Germany with an organization called American Field Service, and they do a very good job of matching students who want to go abroad with a family that's almost exactly like theirs in the US. So I felt, although I didn't speak German well, I felt very, very comfortable with the family I lived with because they were basically like my family at home. We lived outside in the country. I grew up on a farm in the US. So that was very, very much the same. The time the real culture shock came was when I left a town of 5,000 people and moved to Vienna, which had over 1 million people. So the
Wow.
real culture shock was going from very small towns and farms and everything all my life to then living in a major city, which at the time was neutral. The United Nations was there, all of those wonderful things. And I was just so overwhelmed because I had never been in a big city before, had never lived in a big city before. And so Vienna, the culture shock there with the whole background of the country and the fact that they had been a huge empire before and that they were now neutral. And there were lots and lots of things that weren't like living in my little town in the US on my farm. So that was probably the biggest cultural shock.
Wow. Okay. And would you say that having grown up on a farm that got you interested into finding how things come about? Because when I picture a farm in the US or I picture a farmhouse, I'm looking at a family that would basically grow their own things, what look after their animals, their livestock, probably milk their cows and all of that. Was that the same for you? And
Yeah.
did that have any impact or influence in your desire to know the why of things?
Yeah. I think it's an interesting combination because I grew up on a dairy farm, which means we had those pretty black and white cows that you probably have all seen somewhere, at least on television, if nowhere else. And these black and white cows are called Holsteins, and they are a very popular kind of a cow. And strangely enough, my grandfather, who was a real cow expert, was asked by the local association to choose cows to be sent to other countries. So we sent cows to China and to Yugoslavia and to Egypt and to all kinds of places. And my grandfather was responsible for choosing the right cows to send to those places. So when people say to me, "What do you mean you grew up on a farm? What does that have to do with being international?" I knew about international things from a very young age, but all I knew was the cow got put on an airplane and the cow is now in Egypt. Well, I didn't know what Egypt was or where Egypt was or really anything about Egypt. But I did know that there was a lot of the world outside of where I was. And then I had the best experience of my life, and I will ever be grateful to this lady, Miss Snyder, my geography teacher when I was in the 7th grade in school. And she had lost her fiance during World War I. So that tells you how long ago that was. And she never got married. And every summer in America, when schools have 3 months off for vacation time, she decided every summer to travel someplace in the world. And her classroom was like a museum. And so every time we started studying a new country, she walked over to some cabinet, opened some door, and all of a sudden she brought out something and said, "This is what you can see if you go to the Netherlands." And it was a little Delft window. "And this is what you can see if you go to this place and that place." And I was in the 7th grade, and I suppose I was bitten by the bug that says, yeah, you want to go see all those things and do those things as well, which was why when I was 17, that I then chose to be an exchange student. And as I said, ended up in Germany.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
I believe for a lot of the professionals that you work with, one thing that would probably stand out in their minds is how you have experience in not just business, but also in engineering, in the sciences, and then in technology. And
Mhm.
that is what I believe drew your interest into forming your own acronym. So, can you tell us a bit more about the experiences that you have garnered over the years in these fields and how
Mhm.
that has empowered you to make a difference in their lives?
Yes. Um, I spent over 30 years of my professional career offline, meaning I was doing coaching and facilitating and training and all those nice things, either in English or in German or in both, depending on what people did. And I was asked to do jobs with many different kinds of companies. And one of the most wonderful experiences I've had was I spent about 17 years with a major global German chemical company who sent me all over the world to teach their scientists how to negotiate. So I've been in China and worked with people from South America and from many, many, many countries, also some African countries. And I got the chance to work with those people and to help them learn to negotiate. And I was always, and I worked with over 700 people in this company, I was always the only non-scientific person in the room, always. And it was always fascinating because people said to me, yeah, but Rhonda, when you do these things in science, it works like this and this and this. I said, when you negotiate with people and you talk to them, it's not only what you have on the paper and all the research you've done, it's the emotional part of things that people also need to talk about, even if they don't say it directly. And that's something you have to keep in mind. So I was always considered the person who was filling the gap. I was always showing people those things that they wouldn't normally think of because they were all interested in the data and the numbers and all the figures and all of those things. And so if you look at B.E.S.T, when I looked back and someone said to me, if you want to do this online, Rhonda, you have to do something. You have to say exactly who you want to work with. And I had worked with so many people. I said, how do I figure this out? How do I know what that is? And they said, well, who do you work with? And then I sat down and I looked at all those different countries and I looked at all those different companies and I said, I work with people in business, in engineering, in science, and in technology. I work for one of the world's biggest IT companies. I've worked for car companies. I've worked for airlines. I've taught people who do the maintenance on airplanes. I've worked with all these very, very scientific or technical or engineering people, but I am not a scientist and I'm not good at technology and I'm not an engineer, but I give people those things in those fields that they don't normally feel that they're good at, and that's why I can help them best. So I'm exactly what they are not, and that's
That's
the way
right.
I provide the things that are better for them to learn.
So, for the young girl, or probably the young gentleman who is watching us tonight, or probably
Mhm.
replaying the video sometime, you never know, probably in
Yeah.
a decade's time, what will be some of the things that you will encourage them to start doing early on so that they can overcome some of the challenges that are reflecting in the adults that you are helping now?
Mhm.
Okay. So
Yes, I
for
would
those who are
say
looking, yeah.
yes. I love the fact I was just working with young students from my old university in the US this past week online. And one of the ladies there asked me a very similar question during the session. And it was interesting because she said to me, what kind of a person are you and how did that help you, move to Germany and live there for such a long time? And I said, the acronym I use for myself, which is different from my clients, is FIT. And it doesn't mean physically fit. I'm not an athlete. I don't do lots of sports or anything like that. I'm it in the sense of I find myself, and people tell me this all the time, which is why I came up with it. I'm flexible. I've had to work in lots of places where maybe the electricity doesn't work or the equipment doesn't work, and you just have to figure out how to do things in the moment. You have to be spontaneous, you have to improvise, and you don't have to be scared of what's happening. You just have to go in and make the best of it. The second one is people tell me I'm inspirational. So when I tell stories about things that I've experienced myself or with a lot of the people I've worked with, a lot of people find things that help them move forward and work on the things that they want to work on. And the third one is the one that I personally feel most strongly about, and T stands for tolerant. I can get along with virtually anybody, no matter where they come from, no matter their religion, no matter their gender, no matter, it doesn't matter what. I've had to work with so many wonderful people. I've had the opportunity to learn so much from so many different ways of life, for so many different perspectives, so many ways that people interact with each other. And you can only learn from all the other people if you're open enough and you tolerate the fact that they don't think the way you do, or they don't work on things the way you do, or they have different ideas about the way to live than you do. And that's all fine, because we all do the things that are right for us, and we should be allowing other people to make sure that they do the things that are right for them.
Right for them. And that leads me into one of your favorite quotes. You've just said you're flexible, you're inspirational, and you're tolerant. And I guess that really resonates with why you love that quote. So tell us about your quote. You've told me, but tell our
Mhm.
audience about your quote and just share a little bit um, of why that is your favorite quote.
Mhm. It's the quote, and I don't even know if it's really a quote or who it's from, but it's been used in music and films and lots of things. And it's a very simple four-word quote: live and let live. So live your life the way that you need to live it, but do it in a way that you let others live their lives the way they would like to live. And I've been very, very fortunate my whole life that people have always given me opportunities. And people have said to me, for example, Rhonda, we need somebody to go to the US with a German team from TV, from National German TV, and make a series of films in the US and Canada. And at the beginning, I said, but I don't know anything about making films. And they said, you don't have to know, you just have to go and you do the things that you do best. And the guys from the camera team, they'll do the rest. And I had the wonderful opportunity, for example, to do that. If you said to me, oh, where's your certificate and how many years did you study this? Nothing, absolutely nothing. But somebody thought that I was up to this, gave me this opportunity to work on German television for 4 years. And I had a wonderful time. I spent 13 weeks in the US and Canada making films for German television, which are still running even today on German television after 20 years. And if you'd asked me ahead of time and said, somebody would have said, oh, you're going to go to the US and make films. And I would say, what do I know about making films? I didn't know anything about making films. But at some point, I learned that. And so I learned to live. And as I said, all of those people I've met, all of those people I've had the chance to work with, all those people I've had the chance to just interact with in some way, even if it's just, the waiter in a restaurant or somebody who checks you in at the hotel. I've had wonderful experiences with so many different people. And that's why my mantra is live and let live.
Live and let live.
Yeah.
And especially in these times that we find ourselves, how important is it for one to simply learn to be more culturally adaptive and acceptive of others?
I would say if there's one thing in the world that has changed life, especially now since the pandemic started last year, it's the fact that many of us have moved completely online. I had done that before the pandemic. I had made that decision to do that before. But for many people, that was a huge shock. And I think the biggest shock for many people is the fact that when you go online, I can be sitting here in Germany and you are sitting in your house or in your studio in Africa, and we are having the most wonderful conversation. And if you thought about that 1 or 2 years ago, maybe everybody would have said, how was that ever going to work? And I
That,
think the idea that we get to meet people culturally now, but in a different way. It used to be the first time I went to China, for example, to work, people were telling me all these things about what I should do in China and what I shouldn't do in China, and all the cultural things you need to learn before you go to a country where you don't speak the language, but you have to go there and work. And I found out that while I was in China, I had the most wonderful experiences from people I couldn't speak to at all. For example, I was on the subway in Beijing with my colleague who was from Belgium, and we were sitting together and speaking English, and we were the only non-Chinese people in the whole train. And there was a lady sitting next to me, and she was a very nice young Chinese lady, and she was sitting there and playing with her phone, and I didn't think anything about it. And all of a sudden, I felt something on my arm, and she was sort of nudging me with her elbow. And I turned around to look. I thought, oh, I'm too big. It's too close. It was warm that day as well. I thought maybe I'm taking up too much space. And when I turned my head and I looked at her, she held up her phone and made a selfie of us.
ah,
Like was she didn't probably even understand what I was saying. And she didn't ask me anything. She didn't say anything. Maybe she couldn't. I'm not sure. This was a few years ago. But she took this picture. And then the rest of the time, when my colleague and I were sitting there on the train, she was sitting there typing messages into her phone and sending my picture out to who knows whom, and
you guys, I'm
yeah,
sure with all the non-verbal communication and
exactly.
all of the expressions just simply got her engrossed in what you were saying. I'm sure she
Yeah.
probably said, I've met a wonderful lady. I think she's
Yeah.
a star.
So as I said, you have to be just ready for those surprises when they come. And now in the online world, there are so many wonderful surprises. And the more
Definitely.
open you are to those, and as I said, you don't have to learn anymore how to handle the people because you don't go to the country. You just have to learn to talk to them on screen. So it's much easier than it used to be in the past when we all got on airplanes and flew somewhere for hours and hours. You're in a wonderful position if you can just be online and experiencing things with other people as we're doing this evening. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yes. Now, before we wind up, I want you to also tell us a bit more about what you do. So, you're into coaching, you're also into negotiation, facilitating different workshops, etc. And I know we met through Well Speech Day, through Vino, and that is why I'm so passionate when it comes to our virtual encounters. How easy has it been for you to continue doing what you love doing best in this pandemic, where
Yeah.
face-to-face interactions have been quite limited?
Well, as I said, I was very fortunate. People would maybe say I was sort of ahead of my time. I had made the decision for myself in 2019 that I didn't want to travel anymore. I didn't want to get on planes and fly for 26 hours someplace and do all of these things. And I said, I'm going to move my business from offline to online. And it was a very difficult thing because, as I said, I'm not technical. I had to learn lots of things about how to do things online. I also had to hire people to help me because there are lots of things I still can't do myself online. But the interesting thing was because I made that move before the pandemic, and a lot of my clients where I said, come on, I'll teach you how to do this and I'll send you into my Zoom room and then we'll have a lesson. And they at the beginning they were very skeptical and they said, oh, Rhonda, I said, no, I don't want to drive anymore. We're going to do this online. And a lot of those people made the switch in the autumn of 2019. And when the pandemic hit, then in the beginning of 2020, many of them looked at me when we were online and said, Rhonda, thank you so much. Now we know how to do things online because you helped us do that before. And now we have to do everything online. So it's really, really great that you showed us that before we got started. It is a different experience. It's not the same as when you're actually standing in a room with 10 or 15 people and going off to lunch and, having a drink in the evening or, all of those nice things that we could always do when we were meeting in person. But in
Yeah.
the end, if everybody is willing to be working on whatever it is the project for the moment, You have to cut it into smaller pieces. I can't do things from 8 in the morning till 6 in the evening, the way I used to do them in the past. But the nice thing is, because things are so much more flexible, because we have calendars where people can just click on something and say, I want to talk to you, and they find a time that fits. There are so many things that make it so much easier than it was in the past when you had to get on an airplane and fly for 18 hours. And if you got late, then everything went crazy. There are so many advantages to doing these things online. And all of my programs, I've tailored and I've changed a little bit. I received this week an invitation from friends in Turkey. We had done an in-person seminar for 5 years, and we stopped in 2016 because the program had to stop. And they wrote to me and said, Rhonda, we're going to start this again, and we're going to do it all online. Wouldn't you like to come and do the program that we did 5 years ago together in Macedonia? Wouldn't you like to come and do it with us now online? So, as I said, there are things that change, but strangely enough, there are a lot of things that don't change.
That didn't change.
Now, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It has been so exciting. And just listening to you, I know we can go on and on. I'm just going to go through the chats and see if there are any questions from those who have joined. I see no questions yet, but what would be your final message for those who are listening to this wonderful woman with such a versatile, background, lots of experiences that you have channeled from passion into your profession? What would be your message to those who are listening? What can they do for themselves, even in this virtual world we find ourselves in?
I would say,
that's a question. What's her greatest challenge in her professional journey?
Yeah.
What has been your greatest challenge?
That's
yeah.
Very good question. Thank you, Tina. I came to Germany when I was in my early 20s. And at the beginning, while I was working here, I was working for my university. So I was hired by somebody. I had a full-time job, all of those kinds of things. And I had to work in a full-time job after that for a couple of years because as a non-European, I didn't have the right to just stay here in Germany and have my own business. And after a while, when people were saying to me, you don't need to be working in a company or in a school anymore, why don't you start your own business? And I found out all the things I needed to do for that. And there was a lot of paperwork and a lot of bureaucracy. And for 6 months, I was filling out forms and going to interviews with people who didn't even understand who I was. And I always had to be very careful not to say anything wrong, because if they said no, then I had no chance to have my own business. And I was 29 years old. I was American. I was a woman. I was not in a family at all. I wasn't dating anybody at the time. I wasn't married. I was all by myself, so to speak. And then people said to me, Rhonda, what are you doing? You can't start your own business. How are you going to do that? You're a woman, you're American, you're not, how are you going to do that? And I said, well, I'm going to try. Now I've got people who want to help me. And either it works, and if it doesn't work, I went to university for 7.5 years. I'm sure I'll find something else that works, but if I don't try, I'll never know. I was 29 years old at the time. I am now 62 years old, and I am still running the same business and love every moment of it and wouldn't do anything differently. So when you're young and people say you don't have the experience, or you can't do that yet, or you don't know enough, just go and do it. If it's the right thing for you, you'll know it. And if it's right, then go and do it.
That is so amazing. No wonder you are inspirational, Rhonda. So it doesn't matter the challenge. You simply need to stay focused and find the help that you need. That is one thing that I've taken from this discussion. Find the help that you need and simply do what you have to do so that you can get ahead. And I will not ask you what you would love to change about your journey, because you already said that you wouldn't change anything at all.
No, not at all.
One thing I learned from one of my mentors is that sometimes you need to be proud of those scars that you
Oh, yeah.
acquire or you get along the journey, because they all have a bit of the story to tell about your journey.
And
Thank you so
every time you suffer or it doesn't go well or you get hurt or you get a scar, you come out of it stronger. And if you hadn't had those bad experiences, you wouldn't know the power that's within you. And that's what's really important.
That's right. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't work through that challenge, you wouldn't know the power that lies within you.
Yes.
Indeed. So, our cherished viewers, thank you so much for being online with us. Don't forget to keep sharing. And by all means, you can watch the replay, because it will be on the page as well as on our YouTube channel. Tonight, we have been chatting with Rhonda Bowen and getting up close and a bit personal with her, right from her home country in America, living on the farm, getting out of America into Germany, and all of the lessons that she learned along the way. She applied herself, and now she's able to coach professionals who are into business, who are into engineering, the sciences, and in technology. And for those who would like to engage with Rhonda, later after the show, I will be sharing her link and her website. So please do check the comment box so that you can get in touch with Rhonda. Perhaps you're looking at going into a coaching profession or setting up a virtual business, just like she has done since the age of 29, and she is still doing it past her 60s. So you have gotten in touch with the right person that is going to help you not just be the best version of yourself, but if she can rub on you, you might as well become flexible, inspirational, and tolerant. Thank you so much, Rhonda. And so I'll give you the chance now to give us your final words, and we will bring the curtain to a close.
Yes. Well, those of you who are also on LinkedIn, that's a very good place to meet me. I spend a lot of time there as well, or in my Facebook group. Contact me, however, that's fine. And then if you need a chance to talk, I will send you a link. You can just click on the link, look at my calendar, and choose a time that fits you, and we'll get on a Zoom call. And I can find out more about you personally and what it is that you're working on now, and see if there's a way I can help you out. So anytime you need anything, just get in touch with me. I'll send you the link, and then we can get together and work on what it is that you're doing that's going to make you special in your life. I'd really love to support you in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much once again, Rhonda. So we'll bring the curtain to a close now. Don't be in a hurry to go. There is an informational coming right up.
Do you have an inspirational, educational, or motivational story to share with us too? What's stopping you? Simply send an email to perisos.horizon@gmail.com. What is the Perisos Horizon chat room about? It's all about you. The Perisos Horizon chat room series, as stated by the initiator and host, Distinguished Toastmaster Patricia Jifamensalakai, is a platform intentionally here to nurture a culture of celebrating each other's notable milestones. She believes we must not despise our humble beginnings. Instead, we must find a community of like-minded people to support each other, create effective collaborations, and celebrate our small or big success stories. This will encourage us to keep persevering towards our next horizon. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at DTM Patricia Jifamensalakai and like our Instagram and Facebook page at Perisos Horizon. Until next time, keep scaling higher heights.